So you and I may be a bit old for this analogy, but do you remember the story of Goldilocks? Boiling the story down to its most basic level, a young girl is looking for the perfect bed. Not something too hard, not something too soft, just right. Well, when we get to our age, we take the bed away from that analogy and we insert a car, or in some cases, a crossover, an SUV. So what we're looking at here, a candidate for the just right. You look at this, and it immediately says, I'm a station wagon. You look at the front, it's got a nose on it that's somewhat attractive. You can't believe it's from a company that makes appliances, really good ones that are reliable. But here's an instance where we have a long roof, which, I know this sounds somewhat ridiculous, makes it sexy. Now we got to get to the unsexy part, what's propelling it. A hybrid system, much like that of a Prius. So basically 2 electric motors in the front, that is strapped to, sadly, a CVT. But there is some good news. These come only as all-wheel drive, and the way they do that is an electric motor in the rear. Now this is the point where we have to bring all this together and put aside the attractive shape, at least attractive to the kind of folks that find $150,000 station wagons practical. Basically what you've got here is a Toyota Crown, so it rides on the Toyota Crown platform, which means the wheelbase is the same as the sedan in the US, which means it's actually quite a bit shorter in wheelbase than, say, like a BMW 5 Series or a Mercedes E-Class. It's shorter by about 6 inches from any of those. So there, the fuel economy, rather impressive. It's 39, 37, 38 combined, and that is a station wagon. Then we have to get into the performance figures. There, it's not trying to be a performance vehicle. 0 to 60, 7.1 seconds. We won't even talk about VMAX. So a bit of a break from a fully electric vehicle, which means, yes, a bit of a break from a very heavy vehicle. 4,210 pounds, or depending on express your weights and measures, just over 2,900 kilograms with that. Oh, that actually goes not terrible. You definitely feel immediately that this is a CVT, but the acceleration is quite good. Not what I expected from a 4,200 pound station wagon. The real thing working against the acceleration here is that transmission. The acceleration is unusually good, better than I expected, but it feels like, you ever try to breathe through a wet towel? That's kind of what you get with this transmission attached to this car trying to move this much weight. So let's say we go back to that Goldilocks analogy. This would be the point of our story, where if you ask the 3 bears, that little brat would start complaining. Too hard or too soft, applying it to cars, too big or too small. You see, nowadays, most folks want something that's practical, and that translates to a box on 4 wheels that you can not only cart the Rugrats, but all their crap and the other Rugrats that come with them. This, on the other hand, not too small. Believe it or not, with those seats down, almost 80 cubic feet of storage back here. But here's the real point. It has functionality, but you're not fooling yourself driving what you think is a real body-on-frame SUV, but really, it would be a tall car. So this is the point of my job that I like the least. But here, it's not horrific. This works. This is where I, a 6-footer, would sit. Even have an armrest, cup holders, and believe it or not, heated seats. It's actually quite civilized back here. Would I like to be back here? Actually, I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate you for forcing me to be back here. As a matter of fact, you know, you go out with like those couple friends? That's this kind of a car. Toyota wants to sell you on the idea that this is a crossover. It's an SUV. It's not. Now, for those of you that have had the unfortunate pleasure of driving a Subaru Outback, those feel like a tall station wagon. So same kind of idea. It's not a crossover. It's not trying to be an SUV, but that doesn't feel like a station wagon when you drive it because it feels like it's on stilts. That's not the case here. This feels like a station wagon, and that is to say a very good thing. Like, for example, let's come to a stop here, and let's go down here where the road really sucks. Like, I don't feel like I'm being pushed around because the vehicle is sitting too high. I don't feel like it's an Audi wagon or a Mercedes wagon, but here, when I hit these bumps a little too hard, it doesn't knock your intestines out. The ride quality is supple, which a tall wagon doesn't have. Like, the steering is a great example. You would think a Toyota luxury car, the steering would be a mess, it'd be all over the place by design. For example, let's turn here. You would think this would just be over boosted, and that's what they were going for. Here there's actually a little bit of weight to it, which I think balances out the weight and length of the vehicle, not so much trying to make it a sporty vehicle in the way it drives. So rather than playing a round of our famous game, the options game, let's have a discussion of what large and small costs. Like, for example, a Nissan Rogue, I would call that small. That's somewhere around $30,000, can go into $40,000 if it's a fancy one. Then we go into larger, not a Tahoe, those are ridiculous. Those are like $70,000 and up with a couple of options. Let's say a Telluride. A very fancy Telluride is going to cost $55,000. So with that in mind, understand what we have here. Something that is, I can't believe I'm saying this, different than anything else on the road, at least for a practical car, and the base price for the XLE, which is the bargain basement cheap seats one, $43,590. Put another way, about the same price as a moderately equipped Kia Sorento that we just drove, the updated one. Then we get into the fancy one, which this one is. This is the Limited, that has a base price of $47,990. Now the obvious question, what's the difference? Well, the larger 21-inch wheels, the glass roof, it has a sunshade that both opens and closes, but really that's about it, which brings us to an important note about the interior, whether it's the fancy one like this or the cheap seats. You see, Toyota, as well as other manufacturers, have been experimenting over the past couple of years with, there's really no other way to put this, upholstery from petro forests, put another way, vinyl. Now, they haven't been selling it as leather. They call it things like soft text. And I gotta be honest, I didn't know how people would react. Well, we have an answer. Apparently, Toyota's going back to leather, whether it's the fancy one or the cheap seats. And that is 100% because of customer demand. I spoke to the product manager of this vehicle here in the US, and she was very clear that when they got people into the room to talk about a fancy Toyota, they said in no uncertain terms, we want leather. They didn't even want fabric. So the soft text, at least here, kind of gone the way of the dodo bird. Then we get to the one factory option that these cars can have, and that's an advanced tech package. It can only be fitted to the Limited. Basically, it's a bunch of ADAS systems. That's an additional $1,865. This car has it. Then there's the premium paint. You basically get, 5 color choices here. What you are looking at is one of those premium paint choices. That is an additional $425, which brings us to the only other thing we pay extra for, which is a pretty steep destination and handling charge of $1,395 from Aichi or Ahi, Japan, and Chuldigung for the pronunciation there. Whatever it is, it's the same factory that makes other Crowns in Japan, so not just the ones that come to the US, which brings us to a total retail price of $51,675. Put another way, 10% cheaper than the price of the fanciest Kia Telluride. What's most interesting about this, once you get behind the wheel, is the seating position. Again, that's another area where you really shouldn't believe Toyota trying to sell this as an SUV or a crossover. The seat itself actually sits low in the car, where I feel like I've got the door higher. So I feel like I'm sitting in the car, not on the car. That's the difference between like a commodity car and a luxury car. And overall, it kind of completes the picture of this being the cut-rate Audi that I first talked to you about a couple of months ago. I know you laughed at me, but now that I'm sitting in it and driving in it, this is on a spectrum where the German wagons here, not just the Audis, the German wagons are here and the Outbacks are here. This one, as we go over this crazy bump again, is much closer to this than that of the Outback. Rather than pose the question, what have we learned today, I'm going to make a plea on behalf of all car guys around the world. If one needs something practical, I am not a practical human being, so I don't need something practical. But if one does need something practical, please, oh please, oh please, buy one or many of these. Because here's how it goes. We don't have station wagons anymore because practical people don't buy them. If they bought more of them, we would get more of them, not just something like this that's trying to be an SUV crossover, but really is a station wagon and pretty damn good at it. So this is my nice way of saying, get off your ass, buy plenty of these, and then we will have more choices, kinda like the M5 Touring that's coming to the US, which is great news, but you and I both know that's gonna be over 150,000 US, this for a third of the price. And it's a hybrid. Which brings us to the wish list. Not for a car manufacturer, it's for you guys. Have I told you, please oh please, go and buy one of these. Then we can celebrate with more cars, less crossovers, less SUVs. Allow me to interrupt myself from the future. You see, I shot this car after I shot that Crown we were talking about, and there is one item we have to ask Toyota for. I think people will notice a non-premium transmission like the CVT. You gotta change it. People here are not gonna notice because this is basic transportation. But there, I think it's gonna make or break people saying, yes, I want a Crown wagon. You can kind of see where I'm going here, but I'm one man. This is the point of the episode. I turn around to you guys to opine in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV all one word, MotoManTV all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, if you found value in this episode, I would highly suggest you reacquaint yourself with station wagons. How about an Audi RS6? You can see that episode here. Until I see you in the next episode, bis später.